Hi, I'm Patty.
I'm Kim Michelle.
And I'm Jill. Welcome to our podcast. It's a great day to talk.
Because honestly, what day isn't a great day to talk?
So join us in our conversation.
A Great Day to Talk is brought to you by St. George Design, offering complete website design, social media management, search engine optimization, Google and Facebook ad management, and many other digital and print marketing services. stgeorgedesign.com. And by Richardson Brothers Custom Homes, third-generation builders who have been building custom homes in southern Utah for over 25 years. They will take your dream home from concept to completion. Contact richardsonbrothers.com. The April Gates Group and Zion Canyon Real Estate have been specializing in helping southern Utah clients buy and sell property for over 18 years. We can help you too. Call or text April today. 435-632-8869. 435-632-8869.
Oh my goodness, hello.
Hello, it's been forever.
We're back.
See, Jill,
Hello.
We're glad you came our way.
Hello.
We're glad to something.
Something.
To share. Hello. Oh my goodness, I'm so
You're
happy.
singing your roots,
I'm
Jill.
singing my roots. BJ would be happy.
Yes.
I am so happy to be here. It has been far too long, and welcome all of our friend out there. Hopefully you remember our lovely voices. I'm Jill, and to my left immediate is lovely Kim Michelle. Look how lovely she is. And to my left is our ever so lovely, sexy, sassy
Always.
Yeah.
Patricia.
Yep.
Patty.
Yep.
Patty.
The older I get,
The sassier. we
sassier, the
Yeah.
more sassy and the less sexy.
got. Stop.
No.
Nope. You're still all the S's. You're still the alliteration.
Exactly.
Super sexy, sassy. So anyway, welcome to It's a Great Day to Talk. It is such a great day to talk. We've got a couple of things that we would love to chat with all y'alls about today. And the first one that I think we should get started with is an update from our dear love KM.
Yeah.
Share with us, KM, if you would. Tell us how our sweet Scott is doing.
Well, he is a champion for sure, and he is doing well. And so, if you haven't followed or aren't aware, he went into the hospital on the 21st of September.
August
with some pains in his legs, and poor guy, it took me like an hour and a half just to try to finagle him. I knew I needed to take him to emergency because he's had a blood clot before, and we just wanted to make sure we weren't dealing with that. And so I'm doing everything I can to try to figure out how to maneuver him by myself to the car. And I did get him from the bed onto like a rolling office chair. That only took like an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And then I got him to the front door, and it was like, oh, gosh, now what? Because there's stairs going down from there. And I knew that wasn't going to happen. He wasn't able to walk. So we called for ambulance service, and 6 firefighters showed up right behind them. And it took all 8 of them to move him out into the ambulance. And he is doing well, recovering from that whole experience. So he was in the hospital for over 2.5 weeks with
Make the list.
sepsis.
Okay, start number 1.
Yeah, so he had blood clots in both legs, and we didn't think he had a pulmonary embolism, but his discharge does indicate a septic pulmonary embolism. Yeah,
They didn't-
so they don't know if he came in with it that way or with he then got bacterial endocarditis. So they don't know if maybe the bacteria from the heart caused the pulmonary embolism, the septic pulmonary embolism. They're not exactly sure how the pieces all fit together. And one of the things that I can really appreciate from this whole host of doctors that we had working on him and committed to try to figure out what was going on is, I think sometimes I feel like, ooh, I have a owie in my toe. I'm going to go to the doctor, and the doctor's going to be able to immediately tell me what that owie in my toe is about, and then prescribe something to make it go away. When you're in the situation like we were in the hospital, and there are so many things going on, they are doing their very best to guess what it might be and to eliminate what they think is not the cause. And they cannot just tell you this is what it is because they don't know. So that sepsis was the big deal. They just could not find out what the source of that sepsis was. He was on serious IV antibiotics and still not showing any reduction in the bacteria that was flowing through his body until...
And it ended up being 2 different kinds, right?
Yes, it was 2 different kinds. So he did have MSSA for
is
sure,
MRSA?
which is not MRSA, but it is an accompanying one that is usually attracted especially to metal. So they're looking to have fillings in your teeth that are metal. They're looking for any piece of metal that he has in his body, which included his port, which he had just had put in probably not even...
Maybe
he'd
not
only
even
had
3
2
weeks.
treatments
Yeah.
and chemo. So
Right.
they said, well, after about 5 or 6 days of not improving and on every medical apparatus, he was a walking machine. Well, not walking because he wasn't walking. He
able
was
to.
completely
Right,
immobile.
right.
Yeah. But breathing and laughing and dad joke
Extraordinaire.
room of the
Right,
hospital.
right.
Everybody knew to come there to get their bad dad joke and to share a bad dad joke, or to even just get some counsel. That's a younger staff there, and they were just lovely and appreciative of time spent with him. They said, we're going to go now take a look at your port because we just cannot figure out where else it's coming from. Even as we're going in, the surgeon's like, this is not your port. It all looks good, but we'll take a sample. We'll send it down to the lab. We'll have them try to grow some bacteria in there. And if we grow some bacteria in there, we'll know that it's it. And they opened up his port and they could visually see that it was just full of infection.
Swimming.
Yeah, he was swimming in infection there. So, the good news is that every part of his body has been scanned, has been CT'd, has been visibly open to the rest of the world to examine at any time. I just really acknowledge him. You give up so much of your privacy and so much of what you think it is that makes you human, even
Human
or
and a
you
man
or
and a
valued or
capable-
respected or whatever. And he was still all of those things, even in a situation where he couldn't do the basic kinds of care. And so they released him. Then we finally got the sepsis. We figured out he went a couple of days without having bacteria in his blood, which was really, really great. Moved him to a rehab center where he was scheduled to be. He moved there on the 6th of September and was scheduled to be there for 5 weeks doing antibiotics, IV antibiotics 3 times a day, as well as wound care and starting to do some physical therapy to work to get his strength up and get him mobile. And we knew after a couple of days, there's just no way he's spending 5 weeks here. He mentally, it's just not going to support him and his recovery. He gets to do the work necessary to get himself so that he can come home. So we brought him home last Thursday, and
Which would have just been a little bit, about 2 weeks?
it was
Two and
just
a half
a
or-
week and a half.
Yeah.
So
That's
we was
it?
at
Oh my
rehab a week and a
gosh.
half.
That's amazing.
And a week and a day, actually. He went out on the 6th, then he came out on the 13th.
Okay.
And is receiving treatment at home. So home health comes, and I've become quite, in addition to
The home
my
health
other
team.
roles there. Yes, I am now part of his home health team. He loves it when I put the uniform on, which I don't do. So, you know,
Some role
just
play.
saying, just saying. So he's doing really well. He had a little bit of a fall today. And so we know that that's just something, you know, building up his strength and his mobility is something that he's going to get to continue to do. But being home is, it's all the difference. It for him, it's made all the difference. And to do so, that still can be safe for him. We've been surrounded by people that love and care about us, who have been offering support, neighbors who knock on our door and basically just plead to mow our lawn. I mean, really, just really, it's been beautiful to see that. My dear friends here who have been such a huge support, not just to Scott, but to my kids and to me in this process. So we are until October 12th. With the 3 times a day IV antibiotics, and then we'll continue to scan his blood, make sure it looks clean, and then we'll be able to go back after the cancer. Right now, all of that is on hold. So there's no treatment at this point as it relates to the specific cancer diagnosis, because he has to be through his IV before we can do anything with chemo. Chemo makes you susceptible to infection. So that has to be the priority now. And then we'll jump back on that and probably be on chemo through, I would think, till the summer.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's where we are.
What a journey.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
And I'm teaching still.
Yay.
So bless my students. They've just been so gracious with me. And, you know, I have a policy in my room that they cannot have their phones or electronics with them because it's just a distraction. So they go in a phone caddy. But I have to have my phone with me. It's been an
life or
emergency
death.
situation.
Yes.
And they, not one of them, to me, maybe to somebody else, they've complained about that. But to me, they haven't given me 1 second of pushback on that. They've just been so gracious and caring and ask about him all the time and ask about me. So if you are a student listening, which I doubt it, but, you know, shocking things happen.
They've already listened to you once
Then
today.
thank you. And if you by chance are a parent of one of my kids, you should be very proud.
That's
Very,
awesome.
very proud.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Kids are pretty good.
They are. They are.
I'm so glad that this part of the journey is done.
Mhm.
Yeah, or at least we see the end of the road on this part of the journey,
Well,
and
it was
then
definitely a
prepare
speed bump.
for. It was definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm not. Scott said this to me, and I thought it. We hadn't shared it at the same point, but there was a point that we both were afraid he wasn't going to come out of the hospital. And we didn't share that with each other until after he was already out of the hospital.
Right.
In a healthy way, in a good way.
Right.
But there were some pretty dark moments there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're just going to check that right off the list
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
completed.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's strong, and he'll just keep getting
Yeah.
stronger.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. For sure.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
For sharing
Thank
that.
you.
'Cause I know-
Thank you.
I know our people, our listener out there has been waiting to
You mean
hear.
my husband?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I just am really thankful that you've been able to keep us posted.
Yeah. And I appreciate your grace with me. I just can't make it. You know, there was even one I'm coming. I'm going to be there. Nope, I'm not coming. I'm not going to be there.
Well, and that's nothing to thank or apologize for.
Yeah,
it's just
no,
what we
it's
do,
just-
right?
Yep.
How it goes.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
and thank you. And
Should we talk about the
talk
week?
about our week.
Yeah.
Do any of our friends out there know what this week is?
I do.
How about you, Patty?
I do.
I do. Sean, how about you?
No.
Yes, you do, Sean.
We are here to chat this evening about a little something called National Banned Books Week. And this is not a week to celebrate.
Well, I was going to read about it, but I couldn't find any book that talked about it.
Yeah,
it's 'cause they've been banned.
They've been
They've been
banned.
banned. They've been banned.
Bum.
And ding.
So,
So it's not a week to celebrate the fact that books are banned. It's a week to acknowledge that this is indeed happening in our society and to bring light to the fact that this is been an issue and in the recent past a growing issue. And as teachers of English and teachers of students and just citizens in general, the three of us take a high interest in this conversation.
Yep.
And just wanted to maybe share some ideas about what Banned Books Week is about what things such as book challenges are, what's the difference between a book challenge, what's the difference with indeed a banned book. Where do we stand on this in our national consciousness society, and where do we as a community stand on this as well? So with that said,
And I would say it is something to celebrate that we can have the conversation.
that
Because
hasn't
there's
been banned.
in many, because in many countries you couldn't even have a conversation about something like this. But that's why I think it's so critical, because if we don't have the conversations, then we won't be the country that has the conversations.
there won't
Yeah, it'll be like, oh, you can't even talk about that.
Right.
yeah.
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 And we won't be able to wear short sleeve shirts either. I mean, there's
Right.
like, it just
just-
is one thing after another where our
Right.
freedoms are in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, before we just like really jump into it all, there's something that I really want to kind of lead with. And the idea that I'd like to lead with is this concept called self-censorship. And that self-censorship is a freedom. It is a freedom that we indeed get in our country. It's a freedom that many, many people take advantage of and forget the element of the word self. Each one of us as a human being are allowed in our country to self-censor. Now, that's not to say that as parents, we don't teach our kids how to self-censor by self-censoring for them. And then as they age, we scaffold back on that, hopefully giving them opportunities to learn and fail, and also recognizing that at some point our children are going to be the adults, and they too will hopefully take advantage of the freedom of self-censoring. So with that said, part of what I want to acknowledge is that banning books eliminates this freedom that every single one of us has, and
The autonomy,
the autonomy of
Yeah.
being of choice,
Of
and
choice.
it's
the
in,
agency.
right. And you know, so many people talk about, well, that's my constitutional right, and this is also a constitutional right in the First Amendment. And to hear that people can have constitutional rights in one area but not in another area is a dichotomy, and it is disingenuous to whatever idea that we call freedom. If we're going to claim freedom, then we're going to act in a way that's the same that freedom's going to be for all these
All.
areas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, I just wanted to lead with this concept of self-censorship, because bottom line for me, banning books is taking away my freedom to censor what it is I choose to read, what I choose to listen to, what I choose to watch. And I want that to be preserved for my boys.
Mhm.
I want it to be preserved for everyone. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. It's not just about me, even though it really always is just about me. But
Well, it should be all about
always.
you. Right.
I agree.
Sometimes
I
maybe
agree.
it isn't, which is wrong.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
then we need
for
to
sure.
we need to
yeah,
consult
then we
on
need to
that.
course correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Jill, I was thinking about something when you said, self-censoring and the part about the parenting, because when our kids are little, we censor for our kids.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we teach our kids boundaries of what we want them to be able to see or do or watch or hear or all the things. So we're
Right.
censoring. But then there comes a time where we have to let go some of that control and hope we did a good job
Exactly.
exposing them to things so that they know which path they want to
Which path we hope they
we
choose.
hope they take, but we don't get to choose that for them as they age. And I remember as a parent at about 16, my fear. Oh my gosh, did I
Mhm.
didn't
Did I do enough?
Did I do enough?
Yeah.
Is it too late? Maybe I didn't do enough, and now I didn't. Whatever. So there's that part where you have that control.
It's
You
the
have to get,
scaffolding.
yeah,
It's breaking
and you
it
have
back.
to let go, and you have to go. I did the best I could. I gave you all these tools. You get to make these choices. And I feel like that's at about 16 because we're letting them drive,
Right.
which has to be more
We're
dangerous.
letting them go out and work.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Exactly.
be
we don't
responsible
get-
to other people
And we
in a
don't
work
get to censor all that
place,
for
right.
them.
No.
Yeah.
So when, what was the statistic? 34% of book challenges or book banning is instigated by parents.
Yes.
Is it about 34%?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the largest percentage.
Yeah.
Is parents still continuing wanting to censor what their kids read, and then I can see that at an early age, but at an older age, I can see them wanting to help their child censor,
Right.
but as older kids in high school and college and Barnes and Noble and adults and whatnot,
Cell phones.
cell phones,
Right.
we have to have given them the strategies to make those decisions for themselves and hope they make the ones we want them to make.
Right.
But they don't always do that. And I think that with that comes fear. And then what we do when we have fear is we try to control
Yeah,
the situation.
I really think that we've seen a significant increase in the number of requests to ban books or number of challenges
Right.
going on.
Here you go.
From 19 to 20, it increased. From 20 to 21, it increased. And I'm sure that statistics that come out for the whole year of 22 will
Well,
show that this is the most
so
challenged
far-
year ever.
So far, over 700.
Yeah.
In 2021, 2022,
Two books.
And-
have been challenged.
Even more in books. That's just materials.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
It's in the
materials have been
thousands.
challenged. Yeah.
And
On books?
Yes.
And some of these are books that I know you grew up with. I know they're books that I grew up with,
Right.
like To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, I would-
And
The Harry Potter series.
right.
Yeah.
I
Books,
didn't necessarily grow up, but my boys certainly did.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I really believe that it isn't, those books have been around for a long time. So I don't think it is honestly the content of the book for a lot of those, especially for a lot of the classic kinds of reading.
Mhm.
I think it is that we've become a society that does not know how to talk to each other. And because we don't know how to talk to each other, and because we don't know how to find middle ground, then we become afraid of where our voice will be if we don't have a voice. We feel our voice is minimized. And so therefore we feel as if we have to find a voice here around something that we think we have some kind of control over. But I don't really think if you go to the content, honestly, I really don't feel if you really read some of these books, which I know I've heard people say, even in meetings that I have been in, who are supporting a challenge of a book, who said, I have not read that book, nor will I read that book, but I am challenging that book.
You can't do that.
It just creates this frenzy around, listen, we have to create our camps. My camp's over here and your camp is over there, and only one of these two camps can win. When unfortunately, neither camp will win.
Nope.
Neither camp will win. So in the choice conversation, I hear the parent who says, okay, I hear your argument around choice, that these kids should have choice and teachers should have choice. But where is my choice as a parent? I should have choice as well. And I hear that. I absolutely hear that. The solution, though, is not for teachers to then be in a place where, well, I'm going to teach this no matter what, and I'm for sure going to teach it now because you don't want me to teach it. And parents who are, I'm absolutely going to make sure this doesn't get taught. Not even necessarily because I have maybe a really true issue with it, but because I'm on this side of the battlefield and you're on that side of the battlefield.
Right.
So I have to extend my position to that side of the battlefield. That is an issue far deeper than any singular book, because our kids are watching how we play. And when a parent would suggest that a teacher should not teach this book because it's inappropriate, or because of the content, or because it's explicit, or because it embraces LGBTQ plus community, and somehow then says that as a teacher, I would be advocating that every child should embrace that for themselves, when that becomes the battle line that you send your kid to school with, they cannot win. Your child cannot win.
So that's why, we've all taught English for a long time. And I've had parents come to me in the 28 years that I've taught saying, hey, I don't really want my child to read that book. And I say, okay, let's pick a different one. But I let that child change the book, but not the rest. So when you talk about where's the choice for the parent, there is choice for the parent.
I absolutely agree.
There is choice.
One
Yeah.
of the main choices in the whole concept and content of taking books off of shelves, aka banning, is that parents are free to come to any school and to talk to the librarian, or email the librarian, or message the librarian and say, I do not want my child to check that book out. Please put a restricted note on their account.
Absolutely.
And then that way, I, who want my son or sons to read a book, have access to that book. And we are then using self-censoring, which does not lead to power and control of the banning. When it comes down to control of what others are doing, we just have to look at history just a teeny tiny bit.
Right.
To know that it doesn't work. We can start all the way back to the Reformation.
Yeah.
When one religion decided that no one was going to read the Bible but the
elites.
The elite.
The elites.
Right.
And a man said, that's not okay. And hammered these theses to, not feces, but theses to the church door that said, no, that's not okay.
Yeah. Everyone should have access.
Yes.
Everyone should have access, because
And-
that's how you get an educated populace.
Yes.
Yeah, but then that leads to less control.
Well, that's
the
And
power.
that was the
and
power
control.
at
Yes.
the time.
Which led to skinnings, which led to live burnings at the stake.
Oh, yeah.
Which
All the
led
things.
Heresy. Yeah.
all the things, because who was going to control the printing press? We only have to look at 1930s and 1940s for a glaring example of what burning books does to a community. One of my very favorite quotes of all time is Ray Bradbury. And I've had this poster on my door for 20,
Right.
probably
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah.
24,
I mean,
25
we
years.
teach this book
It's Fahrenheit 451.
in most of our classrooms in high school. Most college bound students are expected to have read this book
Every
if they're
AP
college bound.
student, every AP student, is
And it's about
expected.
this very issue.
Right.
Yeah. Ray Bradbury says, you don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what taking away self-censorship does to a society, you know?
Well, I think current climate, what I think is so concerning about the current climate is that when a book is challenged, it just means that a parent or a group of parents has
Or
put forth a
administration or a
challenge
school district
against
or
that
define
book.
the two,
an
define the
organization.
two.
And
Yeah.
then there'll be an evaluation based on legitimate criteria about whether or not that book should then be banned, which means then it would be removed from the shelves. My bigger concern, even, because when you look at the total number of books that ultimately will be banned versus the total number of books that are in circulation, it's concerning. And it's concerning because of the volatility of the conversation that we have. But in the big scheme of things, what I think is more frightening is the prior restraint or our censorship that we're showing before we even put a book on the shelf.
Right.
Or before, as a teacher, I decide to teach that book. Am I thinking, ooh, this would be such a powerful book, but I know I will probably have someone who will object to it. So do I choose a different book instead of the book that I know would serve my students so that I can avoid the potential backlash that I'm afraid may happen? When we start to censor before we even publish or before we even educate around the book, and we make choices to voluntarily keep it from circulation because we're afraid of what the backlash may be, that to me is the most frightening concept of this whole conversation.
And we know that
Oh, it's
there
happening.
are
Let me share
schools
this
in
with you.
our
Go ahead, keep going.
community that
It's happening.
take books off the shelves that haven't been challenged, but they've decided to take them off so nobody would challenge.
Right. So here, exactly.
And that's just some person just arbitrarily deciding for
that.
everyone.
Well, I'm going to
that this
suggest they're
book won't
not
be-
arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. I think they believe they are meeting the criteria for what a challenged book might be. And so therefore they are making the decision to remove it from circulation before the challenge happens.
This is happening. This is recent. Conservative activists want to ban 400 books from a library, but they aren't even on the shelves. So this is in Idaho. A librarian of a small community library. Oh, and I can't make it open the link. An activist group came in to the library with this list of 400 books, demanding that we do not have these books on our shelves. To which she replied, we don't have those books. Not because I haven't purchased them because they're on any kind of list, but because they just haven't been purchased before. This is a small library. Well, this group demanded that those books not even be purchased.
Yeah.
To which she said, no. I won't do that.
Because when does that stop? When do you stop? If you're willing to censor a book before it is out on a shelf, or before you actually even advocate teaching it in a classroom.
Or before you yourself have read it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Then what comes next? It is the censoring of your thought. That is what's next. So now we censor what we think, what we say, what we're willing to put in the public forum, even as our own discourse, because we are afraid of the pushback that may happen. And I get it. I think it's happening right now in society because we are so fragmented.
And it's not just here.
Oh, no.
No.
My husband's cousin's wife, who is actually a friend as well, her children's school district in Virginia had this board meeting that went crazy. And it was recorded and it was published on national news, and she sent the video, and it was the same kind of concept. Part of it was that those that were trying to eliminate these certain books were reading bits and pieces out of context of the book itself. So the other danger in that of banning books, have you read the book? Have you looked at the book as a whole? Or are you reading one page and claiming that the entire work of art is garbage?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the criteria? I read a book and it makes me uncomfortable. Therefore, we shouldn't read it.
Hopefully many books make us
you feel
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. That place that's comfortable is everything that's known to you. So
Right.
if all you want to do is live your life from a place of everything that's known to you, then okay. But that's all you'll ever get from life is what is already known to you. Growth happens in the uncomfortable place. And I would hope that, I mean, I love my students. I would hope that if I'm going to approach them with content in a book that I know may be challenging or make them uncomfortable, that our conversation would be such that they could become comfortable with the uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. Even if you look at the top 10 books that are current young adult books
that are
on
the most challenged lists.
Yeah, like 8 of the 10 are LGBTQ plus books. It isn't about whatever we're trying to pretend that the conversation is about. I don't think. It's about creating a world where that is not acceptable. And when you have kids in your classroom who you know are in the throes of that and already feel the rejection of the rest of society, and now you remove anything that might make them feel as if they're not alone in the world, you are making them alone in the world.
Yeah.
Yep. It just alienates them further. And we already know the mental health ramifications of kids that are in the throes of the LGBTQ plus community are in jeopardy.
And the ones that are being turned away from by their families, and where that's leading them. Sean, will you put up the meme about the library?
Mm-hmm.
This I found poignant, and I have to give credit to a colleague of mine who shared this. It says, finally, and it's a library full of empty shelves. It says, finally, a library collection that offends no one.
Yeah.
But we're getting to this place, I think, in just our society in general, that everyone is just afraid of being offended or offending. Where why can't we be uncomfortable? Why can't we have
Or
the
they're
conversation?
intentionally being offensive.
Or intentionally taking offense.
Stir the yeah.
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 And so when offense was never meant,
Yep.
it's just people need to stop being so defensive. And I also think we need to be careful with our just our language around a lot of things with people that we want to embrace and love. And maybe we say things we wouldn't normally mean or whatever, but if we're saying them in the context of love, and maybe it wouldn't be taken offensive either.
Right. And I also feel like the only criteria I think for me around books really should be, is it inclusive or is it exclusive?
Right.
Am I working to expand the inclusion of humanity and look at it in a different way? Or am I excluding parts of that humanity so that I can maintain what I think is my sense of right or wrong? And that in and of itself is a really powerful place, I think, to stand back for a moment and say, okay, is the position I'm taking on this inclusive? Is it designed to embrace as much of the human experience as possible? Or is it designed specifically to exclude that part which I do not agree with?
Or I'm afraid of.
Yeah. Or
Which-
uncomfortable.
Or
with.
That-
uncomfortable
and
with.
that's the
or
biggest-
disagree with.
That's the biggest, I think, reason people want to ban things is the fear, fear that it'll affect them in some way, or that if we talk about something, then our kids will become
that.
that.
Yeah, it's the same conversation about sex education that happened years and years
Oh,
ago,
my
right? If we
gosh.
teach sex education, then all the kids are going to go out and have sex. If you look statistically, that is simply absolutely not true.
Right.
It is absolutely not true. And I hear those who profit from stirring the pot. And it's on both sides of the political spectrum.
Right.
Mhm.
When you profit by stirring the pot and are advocating it somehow that exposing someone, a high school age student, for example, to someone who is within the LGBTQ experience in a book means that we are going to make them somehow a part of that group. It's the same conversation about if we teach about sex education, kids are going to go out and have sex.
It's just
If we
not
teach that this lifestyle is out there, then they're all going to navigate towards that lifestyle. It's just not true.
What
It's
I-
fear. It's fear. It's fear mongering.
What I love about reading books, especially books that aren't comfortable, especially books that are ideas or experiences that I don't know, is that I put myself in that book, and then when I'm done with that book, I wonder where my friends are.
Yeah.
And so I get to experience things that I wouldn't normally get to experience because of reading. And that's what reading is
Right.
to shine light on all sorts of experiences.
right.
Yeah.
So
Now
that we
you
have
don't
that
have to go
knowledge.
out and have it yourself. You can
that's exactly
experience
right.
it through the
And
words and life of someone
maybe
else.
maybe I read a book, say Out of Darkness, that's
Mhm.
on the banned book list that I'm still reading, and
Which is fantastic.
Yep.
right. And maybe I read this book so that I gain empathy
Yeah.
for those who've gone through this experience.
Yeah.
Right. And recognize that I don't have to go through that, but I can certainly be of support to someone that maybe
Mhm.
I find out has had some kind of similar experience.
Yeah.
Well,
I know that one of the things that the this week for the I can't remember if it's NCTE or if it's if the NEA or which organization, but their theme for this week is that censorship divides us and books unite us. And while that's not always 100% true, in this instance of giving us empathy and sharing experiences and
Yes.
teaching us and helping us to know where it is we don't want to go with our lives, and where maybe if we had a little more bravery, we would be thrilled to be able to go. Or what could our world be like if that were to be? Or what a beautiful place that would be to travel to.
I
And in
absolutely
that
agree
case,
with that.
it's absolutely taking away from the development of all these other emotions and connections with people that so many of us will never see, will never know, will never
Well,
be.
Yeah. And
And-
if you're in my classroom, I think books unite because they create a starting point for a conversation.
Mhm.
And it is the conversation in which we can see, I don't have to have this exact same viewpoint as you, but I can still respect the position that you come from.
Mhm.
It's in that discussion, in that discourse. And that's why parents, you should want challenging books to be in the hands of qualified teachers, because they will create a safe place for your student to experience that dialogue.
Mhm.
And I also love it when my parents are reading the books along
With
Yes.
with
yep.
I
the
love
student,
parents who do
because
that.
then
Thank
they
you,
can,
parents.
Yeah, because then they can have the conversation, and then maybe uncover some comprehension struggles from their child and talk about
And
it
help.
maybe at dinner and go,
Yeah.
oh, that's what that was about.
Right.
It's just one more level too for comprehension strategies for kids. I was also going to say that books about experiences that are not something that I would experience because the culture is different is always so great for me to understand what other cultures have gone through,
Mhm.
and maybe that helps me understand a group of people even more
Mhm.
because I have this
You have a-
experience
And to be
having read this
grateful
book.
for-
I'm super
I mean,
grateful.
Right.
A
So ma-
Thousand
and some
Splendid
understanding.
Suns.
Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
A
I
Thousand
never
yeah.
felt, even in my worst point as a woman,
Right.
feeling challenged,
Uh-uh.
all of a sudden I recognized what a powerful gift I have to live where I live and to be able to experience myself as a woman in the place that I live.
Absolutely.
I never had so much gratitude and appreciation for my life, but also sympathy and empathy
Mhm.
for the lives of so many other women. So I totally agree that that's how books can shape us. And the other thing that I find challenging in this conversation is when we are banning books that are someone's experience of their life.
Right.
Like, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Uh-huh.
Right.
The Glass Castle.
Exactly. There's any number of people who've experienced trauma and overcome trauma.
Right.
But the trauma was real. It was part of their experience. It's not gratuitous. It's there in the book because
It
happened
happened.
to them.
And what are we saying when we ban that type of book?
Right. We're saying don't
your
tell
life,
me your story.
Yeah, your life does not matter.
It makes me
Mhm.
It makes
uncomfortable
me
for you to talk
itchy.
about that, what happened
Right.
to you. So don't
I
come
don't
here
want
and talk to me
right.
about it.
I
Yeah.
don't want to know
Right.
about it
Yep.
because
Yep.
it makes
Me
me
uncomfortable.
I
Yeah.
just read the book called Spilled Milk.
yes.
Mhm.
And one of the things I a lot of takeaways, and that's a true story about
Mhm.
the main character in the book, or the author. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that she thought her life as a child of sexual and physical abuse of the other kids in the home, she thought that was normal.
Normal.
And so she didn't know anything outside her home. And that's what we're doing. If we're not allowing certain books to be read, we're just keeping it homogenized.
Yes.
Yep.
And when she
Muted
got to
and
muted,
homogenized.
yeah. And so when we
Yeah.
got to when she went to another friend's house and somebody spilled milk and they didn't get beat for it, she was like, "Wait a second. I always thought my family was a little odd, but I didn't, she
Yeah.
didn't realize
It didn't connect.
it didn't connect."
It
and
gives
so,
a point of reference.
yeah, and she wanted to, as an adult, teach the signs to kids so they knew what was not okay because she didn't know
Yeah.
what was not okay.
Yeah.
And that's, why would we ever want to silence that?
I certainly
Her
when we want
story.
our kids to write, we want them to write what feels real to them
Mm-hmm.
and not feel like, oh, I can't possibly say this to somebody
Right.
because,
It might make them uncomfortable.
yeah,
Mhm.
we want them to be able to freely write and express whatever that is for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the majority of parents, just like the majority of teachers, and you're going to find outliers everywhere, and you're going to find people, like I said, who profit from stirring the pot. But I think the majority of us, there's very common ground here that we can come to resolutions and solutions that enable us and our students and the world around us to be able to appreciate diversity in both word, thought, and deed, and not say, I have to embrace that. I have to do that behavior in order to embrace it. I don't. I can appreciate that's you and I'm me. I don't choose that for me, but I don't condemn you
And I'm
for
happy
that.
for you
Yes.
to have a connection
Yeah.
in
Right.
your way as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say a takeaway for me is don't challenge a book you haven't read.
Yeah.
100%.
talk to your kids about the books they're reading.
Be involved.
Be involved in that.
Don't have the first interaction you have with your children's school and or administration and or parents and or teachers to be not something like going to back to school night or parent teacher conference night. Do those things long before you decide. Long before you decide
what
one book is how you're going to judge and where you're going to take your stand.
Yeah.
Because you haven't invested any time. Come and be a part of it. Come and get to know your administration. Come to parent teacher conference. Come to PTA. Come and be involved.
Yeah.
Because you want to trust the school. The school wants to trust you.
Yeah. So I'm sad this book is out of our libraries here in Washington County.
I am
School
really
District.
sad because it is such a powerful book.
And especially with the cultural diversity in this book and the challenges that the two cultures faced in
and the levels of abuse
the levels of abuse as well.
And they still found a way to create a family given all of that abuse. Not a family like any other family looks like, but that's what families are doing out there.
Anyway.
They're creating a family unit that looks different than how most family units would look.
Well, I would argue with the fact that most families, because I don't think it's the same as it was. I think that families are looking more different all the time.
More diverse
less
for sure, and not less nuclear.
And their little nucleus that they created in this book was life-giving for the ones involved.
Yeah, absolutely. You find a way to survive, and that's what they do in this book.
Yeah.
That's what I think a lot of books teach us is how to overcome. And where do our kids learn that? Except life experience. And do we want them to have every life experience possible? No, you want them to be able to, experience it in some other way. So, and I will say this, that I don't believe it just sits on parents. I absolutely don't believe that. I think educators, we have a responsibility to be proactive. I think we have a responsibility to look at our curriculum and, let's face it, we're probably teaching with teachers that we know who haven't changed their curriculum in 20 years. We get to be looking at our curriculum and making sure that we're aware of what the potential issues are and that we are catering it to have that kind of an appropriate, exhilarating, and diverse conversation.
And sensitive.
Yeah, sensitive for sure. Yeah. So I know it's just my first time back, and it's a pretty passionate one.
I'm so happy to have you back.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you, friends. Thank you, ladies. We're all in a life experience, whether you write it out in a book or not. It's a powerful story, and that's what books are about, powerful stories.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to It's a Great Day to Talk.
Be sure to follow and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
And until next week,
Get out there and talk.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.